Hello folks, and welcome to another Hexcasting tutorial. Today I am in my survival world, one of my many survival worlds actually, and like many people, I have chosen to live inside a crypt. This crypt is full of zombies, and I mean, frankly, it's kind of frustrating because there's just so many of them. And one of the things that I like to do is light up the place so that we can't see them. Ooh, bonk. And we can't hear them, and they don't show up anymore. Now, maybe I could break the spawners, but that does seem a little extreme after all. Now, you might be noticing that I'm using this little tool here. This is a trinket from Hexcasting, and it's extremely useful. I have them all over my base, and there's all sorts of ways that you can use them. I will show you today how to go about using trinkets and how to go about making them. But first, let me just show you the spell that I'm using for that particular task. And then we'll go about looking at how we might put a spell into a trinket, what sort of techniques you can use, and then what maybe the upper limit of trinkets are. Now, just as a reminder for people who maybe haven't played with this part of the mod or who are new to the mod and coming in, when we look at spell crafting, so we go to Patterns, Spells, Crafting, there are several spells that we have here for crafting objects. And these take an entity and a list of patterns. And ultimately, they allow us to place some energy and a spell into an object, which we can then use. But ultimately, all we are doing is casting a spell. So the spell that is in this trinket, just to show you, is a very normal spell in which we first start by raycasting to a block, if I can, get that right. So we go like this, and this will give us the spot on the wall. But if we were to try and cast the Create Light spell now, it'd fail. And the reason it'd fail is that we tried to cast it where a block already was. So let's aim for that block. Let's go ahead and do the same thing again. Like so. We have a location. We're going to do the exact same thing again. Like so. And then we're going to do a slightly different version of the spell that goes clockwise instead of counterclockwise. And that gives us the face of the block. So now if you look in the stack in the upper left, you'll see that we have a location, and then we have a 1. And that basically says that's the face we're looking at. So now if I add those two things together, we have a new location. So what we've done is figured out the block we were looking at, figured out the direction of the face we're looking at, add those two things together, and then we can cast our Create Light. And now this corner of the base is even more secure from a lightwise perspective as before. But you can see that that spell is a little bit long to cast. So we're going to go through the steps I take to reliably make simple things, simple light spells and things like that. Now I am actually going to, I already have my little light spell here, so I can already right click. So it doesn't make a ton of sense for me to make that spell. And I don't think that this area of my base is actually particularly poorly lit. 118 rules for mob spawning are very different from earlier levels. But I will show you my base, and I have a problem I'm going to solve with hexcasting, and that is, it's very dangerous outside here at night. And I have this super cool create door, a kind of an airlock door, and I have a pretty good weapons. I can take care of myself, but the desert is not a safe place, and there are many dangerous animals out here. And so what I'd like to be able to do is move into and out of my base quickly. Now, the way that we're going to the way that we're going to accomplish this is by casting a blink spell. Now, just to show you how this works, right? What a blink spell needs is a subject and a distance and the blink spell, which we can look up right here. Basic spell, blink. Needs an entity and a distance. And its cost is scaling linearly, which is to say 1-to-1 amethyst shard with the distance that we go. If we take a look at this spell, we can always just trace it, right? And if you hold down control, by the way, it actually shows you visually what the spell is. So this is the spell we're going to put in, right? And that basically just ends, it's almost like Impulse, but a little different. So we go like so. And we're outside. I'd like that in a trinket, right? It's a very simple spell, but it's really quite useful for being able to hop through our little spaces. Now, I could cast this spell, but you can see that the inputs are a little bit finicky. So what I'd like to do is have a trinket for that. So first of all, I'm going to make a trinket. I'm pretty sure I have everything I need to make a trinket. Like so. They're very, very inexpensive objects. Now, one of the things that's a little bit different about making trinkets, right, is that we aren't going to be casting a spell. We're going to be casting a spell that needs a spell, right? And so we're actually going to be using the introspection and retrospection tools. I'm just going to show you. Let's just say I was to do this. The spell that we were using before, right, was this spell that put myself, the number 2, and then cast Blink. Now you'll notice the stack isn't changing at all, and that's because of that first glyph I wrote. When I write it's kind of like a parentheses, you could imagine. When I write the enclosing style, now instead of casting the spell, I've put it on the stack. And then I can take my new trinket, which I think we're going to start off and immediately name as, we'll call this Blinket, because it's the trinket for blinking. We need to put this spell in. Now, another interesting thing about trinkets is that they cannot use your power source. The system kind of goes like this. There are ciphers. Let's go back over to the thing so that we can see it straightforwardly. I think this is my favorite section. There are ciphers. Ciphers use copper as their base material, and they can cast spells, but they cannot be refilled. Trinkets use iron as their base material. They cannot use your power, but they can be refilled. And so they're sort of my favorite spell. And then there are artifacts, which are as you can see, a very complicated spell. And they have the power to use your own energy when they run out. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me show you exactly how I do this. Now imagine this spell's not very complicated, but you can get very complicated and multi-part spells inside your setup. So what I'll show you here is how I make the trinket, and then I'll show you how we recharge them, and then I'll show you a more complicated spell, and you can imagine how you would build it as an exercise for the reader. All right, so we've got this here spell, and this is the spell we want to use. One of my favorite things to do is to use a focus. When you put these things in your offhand, and you can see they're not too expensive, although they do require nether access, then we can go like this, I believe, and we can write our spell to the focus. Now, it's gone, right? But if I were to go like this and do that spell counterclockwise, the same spell I just did, the pattern I should say, counterclockwise, I get it back. So now I've got it saved. And so what I can do, by the way, just to test that my spell is working correctly, is I can use this, what's called Hermes Gambit, which basically says, cast whatever spell, you pretend the list of patterns at the top of the stack is a spell and try to cast it. So you can see that we've actually almost got something right now. If, I go ahead and I pull the spell out of the focus, which I can do any number of times that I want, and then I cast this Hermes, which, by the way, is in this part of the book under meta evaluation, Hermes Gambit. And you could also see Thoth's Gambit. Thoth's Gambit is another really nice one, but we won't cover that today. It's kind of an advanced thing. But so now we've almost got it. So what we need to do now is a couple things. If we look at the spell for creating a trinket, it does have one extra requirement. It wants an entity. What does that mean? Well, it wants the fuel. Now, for me, I get my fuel right now at this it's not very advanced stage of this game, right? You can do a bunch of things in the mod and outside of the mod using cross-mod compatibility to get lots and lots of amethyst. But for me right now, I have a fortune pickaxe, and deep in these catacombs nested, there are amethyst blocks that lead me down the path, this long and convoluted path through this. But it turns out that right next to my catacombs is the shell of a dead mind. And so here, especially when you have fortune, I believe this pickaxe is the one with the most fortune. Yeah, this has fortune 3. We can easily pick up a fair amount of amethyst fast. Once you have fortune, this stuff drops really quick. But I've recently gone harvesting here, so there isn't too much to pick up. So let me just get back upstairs. And I come back up, and there's an Enderman in my house. Excuse me, sir. I am trying to do a tutorial. Amateurs, really. This is why doing tutorials in survival in real worlds is kind of tricky. Okay. Take your time, dead Enderman. All right. I've fed myself. The Enderman's death scream is done. This is tough to do in survival, but let's get it done, right? Because I need this for my survival world. Obviously, my base isn't going to fix itself. So let's go ahead and do it. So what we need to do to cast the Trinket spell is we're going to need a base fuel, and that's what's going to live inside the Trinket and power it. Now, we have to raycast to it. It helps to hit F3 plus B. This is a Minecraft hotkey that gives you access to the hitboxes. I don't need it anymore because I'm sort of used to the funky hitbox of Amethyst, but what we're going to do is go like this. Now, this is our location, our look vector, and then we're going to raycast for entity. I always get this spell wrong. Always. I always do this for some reason, which is backwards, right? But I wanted to do it on purpose here just to show you that if you do happen to mess up, there's something called Bookkeeper's Gambit. You make, for every part of the stack you want to keep, you make a dash. We want to keep 2. For every part you want to drop, that garbage at the top, we make a dip. This will clear the stack. Let's go ahead and recast that spell correctly this time, which is to say counterclockwise. And now we have the Amethyst entity. Next up, we need to recall the spell from the focus in hand. So let's go ahead and do that. We don't need to look at this anymore. We can stand back and see the stack clearly. Let's go ahead, and as I recall, that's counterclock. Oh boy. If you ever accidentally have a little spasm like that, then you can always hit escape while casting, and that will just totally reset. All right, there we go. We have Amethyst Shard, and we have that. So now we need to put the thing we want to encode the enchantment on, in this case, our blanket, in the offhand. Must be the offhand. And let's go ahead and cast it. Now, I will tell you that this spell is not, it looks very crazy, and it is not as hard as some of the others, but it will probably take a few tries. There we go. So now our spell is encoded, and I have a blink trinket, right? And it can do all sorts of interesting things. Oh. And it will do its best not to put you in a wall, by the way. You'll see it bounce out like that. It still can be fooled by partial entities, but now something that's kind of interesting is, let's see, about the blink trinket is that you can do it while in midair and things like that, and there's only a minimal cooldown on the trinket. Now, you'll notice that as I'm using it, there's a little bar here, and it's slowly going down. And you can see that I have already used 25% of the fuel of the trinket. So we can't just go using this willy-nilly nonstop. We actually have a limited number of things we can do, of uses. How do we recharge them? Well, let me show you that, because it's not too hard. And I'll show you a more sophisticated trinket that I made. We're going to go ahead and grab a full stack of the amethyst shards. And here we go. This is my other trinket. It's unnamed it was my first trinket, and it's very, very sophisticated. So we'll walk over what that does in just a second. But what we need to do actually is we pick it up, we put it in our offhand, and then we drop this on the floor. As per usual, what we're going to do is grab our staff. We're going to raycast to the object so that it's on the stack. Like so. And by the way, some people make trinkets or ciphers, which are the non-rechargeable version of trinkets, just so that they don't have to do this part, which I think is pretty funny. It's a little bit tricky to get it to work, but it does work. And then we'll go ahead and do this time without the deliberate mistake. And how does that spell go? I believe it goes like this. Yeah, this is the recharge spell. Some may find this symbol familiar. There we go. So now we've recharged this spell. This is a spell that's fairly sophisticated because it has different behavior depending on if you sneak or not. Now, I'll probably have to do another video, as this one's running kind of long as tutorials go, on how to do sneak differentiated spells like that, but they're quite popular. So let's go ahead and do this, and if I hold down sneak, it casts levitation on myself for 3 seconds. Pretty nice effect. If I don't hold down sneak, though, you could see that we can get going real far. This is a self-impulse 3 spell. And if you look straight up, yeah, this is going to kill me. That's why, if you hold down shift, at the last second, you can levitate to save yourself. I like this one. It's pretty fun. I think it'd be better as an artifact. so that when because you can see that we've already used just that little bit of playing has already used about 25% of the power. That said, I could make it weaker or something like that. So maybe in a future, if you're interested, leave a comment down below saying what kind of spells you'd like to see in Trinkets, or if you'd like to see how you go about making different types of spells like that occur in Trinkets. Because there's actually really like no upper limit to what you can do there. Like you can make spells and Trinkets very sophisticated. So, folks, I think that that's everything I've wanted to impart about my methodology for making simple trinkets and about how you use them and recharge them. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that this was helpful. This has been the Hexcasting mod available on CurseForge. I've been adding it to the All the Mods 7 pack and streaming regularly, and also the Direwolf 20 pack and streaming semi-regularly. If you'd like to go ahead and take a look, I'm over on Twitch, same name, KirinDave. Catch you later.